everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss URC 522 Article 3, which is about parties to a collection. Now, Article 3 comes in two subsections. In that, the first subsection A introduces to us the primary parties to a collection. Section B introduces us to the person called drawee. Now, why is this segregation happening in this Article 3? Because Article A dedicates itself to the direct or the primary parties to a collection. Though drawee is involved in the process, he is not directly involved in the collection itself. He just is the receiving party of the final documents. So with that understanding, let's get into the article. Article 3, talking about parties to a collection. Subsection A introduces us to four direct parties. The first party is principal. Now, principal is the person who is the starting point of this collection. He or she is the party who is handing over this collection to the bank, who is submitting the documents to the bank so that it will get passed on to the final receiving party who will be the drawee. So essentially, this principal is the seller, or to be exact, he or she will be the exporter. Now, URC 522 specifically defines principal as the party entrusting the handling of a collection to a bank. So, he or she will be the party who is collecting the documents, compiling them, and then entrusting those documents to the bank and giving them the collection instruction on how the collection needs to be handled. Secondly, we have remitting bank. Remitting bank is the bank to which the principal has entrusted the handling of a collection. So it is essentially like the exporter's bank who will be receiving the documents from the exporter and is now given the task to submit this or to send these documents to the drawee who will be the final receiving party. Next, we have collecting bank. Collecting bank is any bank other than the remitting bank who is involved in the process of collection. So, in this process of handing over the documents from exporter to the importer, you will first of all have the remitting bank where the principal is entrusting the documents to this particular bank, and any other bank who is involved in this process of collection, we could broadly call them as the collecting bank. Be mindful of the exception you have here. Collecting bank is a bank which is not the remitting bank. We also have a bank called the presenting bank. Now, this presenting bank is one of the collection banks which is making the presentation to the drawee. Now, I told you there can be one or more collecting bank in the process. So, the final collecting bank who will be receiving these documents, and now instead of passing it to another bank, if the bank is presenting it or making the presentation to the drawee, the final receiving party, then that particular collecting bank is termed as the presenting bank. Finally, subsection B introduces us to a party named drawee. Drawee is the person to whom presentation is to be made in accordance with the collection instruction. So, in other words, he or she will be the receiving party or the buyer who needs the documents to clear the goods, or you could simply call as importer. Now, having known all these parties and the terms you call them, let's see where they fit in the full map of a collection process. Now, here you have the exporter. Essentially, this party is the principal. So, the principal is the starting point of the collection, and the final receiving end would be the drawee. Now, how is this international trade first starting off? When it first starts off, it will be a sales contract. Sales contract between exporter and the importer, or buyer and seller. Remember, when you're defining or talking about the sales contract, you cannot be using the term principal and drawee. Why? Principal and drawee comes in when we're talking about collection. Now we're talking about a sales contract. Here it happens between exporter and importer, or seller and the buyer. So once the sales contract is finalized, exporter is essentially shipping the goods to the importer, which happens next. After the goods are shipped, now for the importer to clear the goods, he needs the documents to claim title for. Now these documents have to come from the exporter. So this is where the documents come in. Remember, these documents can be commercial documents and financial documents, or it can be commercial documents only. Either of these two happening, you call it documentary collection. If it's only financial documents, you call it clean collection. So you can see how Article 2 gets involved here as well. At this point, exporter takes the role of a principal and submits or entrusts the handling of documents to their bank. Now here, this bank is the remitting bank. The bank to which the duty or the responsibility to handle the documents is given. Now this remitting bank will thereafter transfer the documents with the collection instruction to the importer's bank. Now remember, any other bank who is involved in the collection process, you call it as the collecting bank. Now, if this collecting bank has to now pass it to another bank, let's assume, then again the other bank is also called the collecting bank. Okay. But here in this situation, the collecting bank in itself is giving the documents to the final receiving party, who is the drawee. So, importer's bank is not only the collecting bank, will also take the role of the presenting bank. That's why the definition of presenting bank said that it is a collecting bank which will be handing over the documents to the drawee. So a presenting bank can be a collecting bank. So from the collecting bank, now they take on the role of a presenting bank. Why? Now the documentary collection or the documents under collection is being handed over to the importer. So once the documents are received to the collecting bank, they will be notifying the drawee of the arrival of the documents. And at that notification point, they become the presenting bank. Why? They now giving the notification to the final end party. Then importer meets the bank and then agrees. Let's assume here the collection is on site terms. Will make the payment on that particular time itself, immediately on site. Thereafter, the documents received will be released to the importer. The collected payment will thereafter be transferred from the presenting bank to the remitting bank. Then the remitting bank will thereafter transfer the payment to the principal. And through this, the international trade and transfer of payment is completed. So I hope Article 3 was clear to you. Who are the parties involved? Remember, there are main 4 parties: principal, remitting bank, collecting and presenting bank. And section B talks about drawee separately. So with that, we will conclude this video. We'll meet again in our next video to speak about Article 4 of URC 522. I hope this video was helpful to you. Thank you for listening and subscribe and support us for more videos.